Are you thinking about moving to Toronto, but you want to understand the real deal? Well, I'm here to give you the 7 worst things that I think are in the city of Toronto. And if you can handle these, then you can handle anything. So let's get to it. Hi everybody, my name is Connie Sarvanandan and I'm a real estate agent here in Toronto and the GTA. And if you're thinking about moving to Toronto, then we would love to help you. We get clients from all around the world and we absolutely love it. So call, text, email, or WhatsApp, and we'll make sure that we take care of you. So let's get to this list. The first thing we're going to talk about is the weather. And I'm going to address the weather because I feel like it's the elephant in the room that everybody thinks about when they think about Canada and they think it's cold. And they think Canada's cold, so they think Toronto's cold. And let's be clear, winter is no joke. It does get cold in Toronto in winter. But it's all about preparation. And the fact of the matter is we're not just a winter climate. We are a 4-season climate. So we have winter, spring, summer, and fall. So let's talk about winter a little bit. So when it gets cold in Toronto, it gets really cold. And there are days where I don't want to walk out of the house because I'm not really a big winter person. But my family loves winter because they're big winter people. So they love skiing, they love ice skating, they love tobogganing. So they love doing all these winter activities. And I think if you're going to move to a country that is cold for part of the year, then you just need to embrace it and make sure that you continue to do activities in the winter. And we have all kinds of activities throughout the winter that's planned by the city and everything else. Nothing shuts down in winter. So you can still go see a concert in winter. You could still go to a restaurant. You can still do everything in a winter climate. And the city is quite prepared for winter. So we have snow plows and we make sure the streets are clear and all of those things so that everybody can go about their day. We also have things like the Path, which is an underground system in Toronto where you can stay underground. So if you work downtown and you don't want to go outside, you can go to restaurants and shops within the path and never go outside. So we definitely have a winter here and it is one of our seasons, but if you're prepared for it and you get the right clothing and everything else, winter can be a great time of year. And seeing a beautiful snowfall in Toronto is actually majestic. And if you go outside of Toronto, 1 or 2 hours, there's also some beautiful scenery with the snow that is actually majestic. So that's winter. Now, the summer can get hot. So there are days when we look at degrees in Celsius that you can get up into the mid to late 30s in temperature. So there are times when Toronto can be hot. I personally love hot, but everything's equipped for summer too. So the restaurants have air conditioning or fans. Most homes have air conditioning or some sort of fans. We're prepared for summer as well. And then my favorite time of year is fall. And the reason why fall is perfect is because the temperature is perfect. You can walk around without a jacket during the day, and then you just need a light jacket at night. And the leaves on all the trees start turning colors. So it's absolutely majestic. And fall is my favorite season, but depending on which Canadian you talk to and which Torontonian you talk to, different seasons mean different things to people. So weather is definitely one of the biggest cons, but like I said, if you prepare for it, then you can absolutely love the weather in Toronto. So the next worst thing about Toronto is construction. And construction is brutal in Toronto. It happens all the time. There's a joke that there's 2 seasons in Toronto. One is winter and the other is construction season. Because everywhere you go, construction is happening. And construction actually happens in winter too, but it's happening throughout the city. And there's a couple of reasons for this. First of all, the city is growing and our population is booming, and we're also a very big investment spot for people to buy properties. And so we have a gazillion condos going up throughout Toronto. And so that construction is always happening. We also have a lot of activity when it comes to roads because we are a winter climate. you will see that the province and the city is always fixing our roads. Anything that gets damaged in the winter gets fixed. And so that construction is happening. The other big thing that's happening when it comes to construction is that we are expanding our transit. So we are building new subways, we're building new light rail, we're building all kinds of things to address transit in the city. And so that's also construction, which is creating all kinds of diversions as far as routes go for traffic and cars. So construction is constantly happening, and you're going to see it throughout the city. There's nowhere you can really go in the city where construction is not happening, and it's definitely one of my biggest pains. So construction adds to the next big bad thing in Toronto, which is traffic. Traffic in Toronto sucks. There's no other word for it. You can expect to spend a lot of time in traffic in Toronto. Now, there's a couple of reasons for this. First of all, our transit system is actually pretty good. It's clean, it's safe, and it gets you to point A to point B fairly seamlessly. That said, it's not extensive, and the city and the province have realized that we need to build more transit, so which adds to the construction. But right now, because the transit is not as extensive as it should be, a lot of people rely on their cars. So we are definitely a car city, and being a car city, it just adds to traffic. Most people I know have a car, not because they need one, because there's lots of ways to get around Toronto without a car, and you definitely don't need a car. But a lot of people have cars, and as a result, we have terrible traffic. And so that adds to commute times. Commute times in Toronto can be as much as an hour and sometimes more, depending on if you're in Toronto or the GTA. And when you add in the layer of construction, commute times can be even worse. So traffic is definitely a pain. What I would always suggest is that when you're leaving somewhere, you always check, Google Maps or Waze or something to make sure your planned route is what it's going to be, because something that would take me 20 minutes normally can take me, double that time because of all the construction, and as a result, the traffic is so bad. So definitely one of the worst things about Toronto is our traffic. The next thing that's the worst thing about Toronto is finding a job as a newcomer. Now this one's a little bit near and dear to my heart because my parents were immigrants. They came to Canada from Sri Lanka. And when they came, their education and their experience in Sri Lanka really didn't matter, and they kind of had to start from the beginning. So I would say that would probably still be true for a lot of newcomers to Toronto. So here's my suggestion. First of all, if you come with a job, great, then you're not going to have an issue. So if you're getting an internal transfer, or if you've already gotten a job, then that's great. It's more the people that come here expecting to easily find work that find it more challenging. So what I would suggest you do is that if you are coming here without a job, you start researching your field before you get here. You find out how people recruit, find out what kind of experience they need, and find out exactly what you need to do to get your equivalencies in Canada if they aren't the same. Because what you might find is that, what you think is great experience may not qualify here in Canada. It's really important that you look into all of these things. The thing about jobs in Toronto especially is that, first of all, we have a lot of immigrants. And then we also have this huge student population because there's so many universities and colleges throughout Toronto. So there's a lot of competition for jobs, and a lot of times for some of those jobs, what you're going to find is that they want Canadian experience. And if you don't have Canadian experience, they're going to give it to somebody who's already in Canada that has Canadian experience. So that's why sometimes finding a job for a newcomer is tough. Now, again, if you're a software engineer or somebody in IT, you're probably going to get a job very easily, or you're going to get a transfer from your company. And anybody who gets a transfer in any profession is fine. It's more about the people that are coming here without a job lined up. The other thing I would highly recommend you do is that there's all kinds of resources available online that you could look into before you arrive. So Canada and Ontario and Toronto all have websites for newcomers and employment. There's also job board sites that you can go and look into. So, and then the other thing, there's Facebook groups and YouTube videos of people talking about their experience about coming to Toronto and finding jobs. So again, I think if you are prepared, this won't be an issue, but if you're not prepared, then you're going to find it a big struggle and going to be one of the worst things about coming to Toronto. Next on the list of the worst things about Toronto is making friends. And quite honestly, I don't think this is unique to Toronto. I think this is true for any global city. It's not easy to just come into a city and make friends easily unless you already know somebody in the city. So if you are coming to Toronto and you don't know anybody, then I think it's really important that you start to plan how you're going to meet people when you arrive. Now listen, Canadians are nice. We're nice people. If you ask for help, we'll definitely do it. It's just not, when I say that it's hard to make friends, it's just not something that's happens naturally. You're going to have to make an effort. So start talking to your neighbors as soon as you move in. Start joining groups. Start actively going out. So there's a lot of Facebook groups that are for new people to Toronto, and they have all kinds of activities, whether it be free, like going for a walk, or there's activities that may involve maybe meeting somewhere for a drink and things like that. It's always group activities. And so it's a safe kind of place to go and meet new people. But like I said, I don't think it's really unique to Toronto. I think it's any sort of city you move to. In my younger years, I moved to San Francisco and I had a job transfer to San Francisco. And when I got there, I didn't know anybody, and it kind of sucked for the first couple of months because I didn't know anybody. And I did meet people at work, but even then it just took a little bit longer for me to get to know the people at work, to get to know their social things and everything else. So what really made a difference for me when I moved to San Francisco is that I joined a group called Sport and Social. I think they're called Jam Sports now. But Sport and Social, you would join as an individual and they'd put you on a team with other individuals and you play your sport. For my sport was floor hockey, of course, being Canadian. And then afterwards we would go out to have a drink together. And so you play your sport and then you go out and have a drink, and that was the social part of it. And from there, I met a lot of people that way. And it was a lot of other people who were just trying to make new friends throughout the city. So that's Sport and Social, or Jam Sports, but there's other activities like that throughout the city. And some are free and some are paid, but you have to do things like that to meet people. So I did that in San Francisco. I think the same applies to Toronto. So we are friendly and people do want to have new friends, but it's just not naturally going to happen. And it's not, so easy breezy if you don't know anybody. So be prepared for that, but I don't think it'll be an issue. So the next one isn't really the worst thing about Toronto, but it's a big surprise for a lot of people when they come to Canada and Toronto. And so I thought I would address it. And that's our distances to other cities. So if you're coming from a place like Europe where, you can hop on a 2-hour ride from London to Paris, that's not really going to happen here in Toronto. We are starting to get high-speed trains that'll run from Toronto to Montreal or Toronto to London, Ontario. That's happening. And we do have a GO train, which does the GTA. So you can ride the GO train to do stuff like that. But it's developing and it's not universal like you would find in Europe. And so it goes back to what I said before about this car culture that we have. And a lot of people are just used to driving places. So, driving to Montreal is about 6 hours. And then driving to Ottawa is about 4 hours. And then driving to Niagara Falls from Toronto is about an hour and a half. And then Waterloo is the same, about an hour and a half. So, we're a car culture and we're just used to doing that. We also drive our cars to go to Collingwood to ski or to go to Muskoka for the Lake Country. And again, Collingwood, an hour and a half to 2 hours, Muskoka, 2 to 3 hours. So you got to be used to that and you got to be prepared for that because we're definitely a city and a country that everything isn't close. The other big surprise to people is that Vancouver is about a 5-hour flight. So even though Vancouver and Toronto are in the same country, it's a 5-hour flight. It's about the same time to go to Vancouver from Toronto as it is to go to LA from Toronto. So that's another one to keep in mind. So again, not necessarily the worst thing about Toronto, but it's one that people are kind of surprised by. And the number one worst thing about Toronto is our high cost of living. Toronto is an expensive city, and you have to be prepared for that when you get here. We have high rent and we have high housing prices, and that's because Toronto is highly desirable. Lots of people want to live in Toronto, whether they be from other countries or they be within Canada itself. People want to live in Toronto for various reasons. We have a robust economy. We have, every activity you can think of, from all the major sports teams to theater to concerts to, all kinds of nature activities throughout the city. We're also on waterfront because Toronto sits on Lake Ontario. And we're an international destination with an international airport that's very close to the city. So flying in and out is doable and easy. So it's highly desirable, but as a result, it's really expensive to live here. Currently, right now, I'm helping one of my clients find an apartment in downtown Toronto. He wants a furnished apartment, and he doesn't really care about size. So he's looking at a studio which doesn't have a bedroom, or a 1-bedroom that does. Both of those he would consider, and he wants them furnished in downtown. And we're looking at about $1,800 for that, $1,800 to $1,900 for furnished, and a little bit less for unfurnished. So that's kind of the rental housing markets. And then when you look at our average price point for housing, we're at $1 million. So now that's average. We have a lot of expensive homes in Toronto that contribute to that average. And that includes condos and townhouses and detached and semi-detached, but that's the average price point, which is quite high. Now, for $500,000, you can still buy a place in Toronto. It's going to be a condo, and the size will depend on the area. So there's definitely things that are less than $1 million, but that is the average price point. So it's definitely an expensive city, and you need to be prepared for that when you come here. And again, there are ways to mitigate your costs. So when you are looking at renting, it might be taking on a roommate or looking at accommodations that are shared. And then the second one, if you're buying, then you could look at something that it has an income suite. So it might be a basement apartment, or it might be a duplex where it's two apartments where you could live in one and rent out the other. So there are ways to mitigate the cost, but you should be prepared that the cost of living, particularly housing, is high in Toronto, and you have to be prepared for that. So that's definitely the biggest and worst thing about Toronto, is the high cost of living. So that's my list of the worst things about Toronto. And I think if you can understand them and prepare for them, moving to Toronto will be much easier for you. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please like and subscribe. And also, please comment below. Did you find the video helpful? Did you think I missed anything? We love hearing your feedback, especially if you think that there are videos we should make in the future. So with that, everybody, thank you for watching. My name is Connie Sarvanandan. I'm a real estate agent here in Toronto and the GTA. And if you have any real estate needs or are thinking of coming to Toronto, then please reach out via calling, email, texting, or WhatsApp. We would love to help you out.